We were planning to add German battleships by the end of the year, but we're not sure we're going to be able to make all of the models for the whole tree. So that might be delayed into the first quarter of next year. And in general, because of the pipeline, how long it takes to produce each ship model, it takes anywhere from 3 to 7 months, depending on the size of the ship. Most of the ships, because of their size, so battleships and carriers, they take 7 months. So because of that, it takes us a long time before we actually have the whole tree completed. And in the middle of that process, if it turns out that we have to change a ship, then that makes the pipeline even longer. And for example, it means that we do wind up with some ships that we have models for later, but between the actual conception and the introduction of a ship tree, it takes a long time. So to answer your question, basically the rest of these ships will come probably in the first, second, and probably third quarter of next year. For some of the ships and classes, like for example, German aircraft carriers, we might not have enough ships to actually make a tree, right? That's the question that everybody asks. So how are you going to make German aircraft carriers? There are some plans that we got from our research with the Bundesarchiv in Freiburg and from other sources. So we technically could make a lot of paper ships, but currently we're probably going to stick with a few premium carriers maybe for Germany and maybe add later on to that. So I'm not sure whether we'll have all of the branches for Soviets and for Germans, but for sure destroyers, cruisers and battleships you will have in both trees. So the thing about this question is that of course we've been considering them. We've been considering submarines since the beginning, but the problem is in the implementation. How do you make them fit from a historical perspective into the gameplay that we have in the game, which can be characterized as arcade-ish, fast-paced, it's not a simulation and so on. So the answer is pretty much still the same. We're not planning submarines, but that's because we don't have a good idea of how to implement them into the game. If you look at Chinese clones, for example, like Steel Ocean, they did submarines. You can find gameplay videos online and you can see how they did submarines. This is not the type of gameplay that we want for submarines because it's just boring. We also tried in-house some testing where we just took a destroyer, made it very, very slow and made its torpedoes just shoot to the front. It was also very, very boring. So unfortunately we dropped those ideas, and until we have a good idea on how to make submarines a viable class in the environment that we have currently in the game, then we're not planning them.
The problem is how to make the submarines fun to play.
Yes, exactly, how to make it fun to play. Of course you can say that there will surely be people who just like to sit and wait, but it's not worth the development effort for us to make a whole branch of ships just for a few people who like to wait. They can play Silent Hunter, it's a perfectly good game, right? Yes, you will see I don't want to see all of the weather effects because that might not happen, but we want to do weather and we're working on weather right now. In general, the only thing holding us back is just on the technical side of the engine, like implementation, and also making it not too hardware heavy for the end user, right? So when we're kind of done with that, then we'll try to push it out. Probably going to come first half of next year. If we're late, then the second half of next year, but we do want to have weather really, really soon because it would be cool just to have it, right? Arpeggio modification comes with unique skins for the ships, which kind of look like camouflage, but they're very, very creative, let's say it that way. So in a sense, this is a step away from historical accuracy where you have a ship that doesn't necessarily look like just historical photographs that you might see in a magazine or online, where it only has either just the steel plating on itself or the historical camouflage. So off of that, we're probably going to continue at least looking in this direction, whether we want to do more specific skins, non-historical ones, maybe more nation-based ones or something. But right now we don't have a decision on this. We're just focusing on the arpeggio mode. We're going to see how the reception is not only in Asia, but also whether other regions want to adopt it and whether it's popular in other regions. Not very soon, I'm afraid. But we are planning it. So first of all, we haven't started researching it yet. So probably we'll have to go to Italy and dig around in some archives and see if we have plans. If we do, then that makes it fairly easy. If not, then we will have to be creative, either by looking in some more convoluted places or by making up the things that are missing from what we have in the archives, right? So right now we're planning on focusing on the two nations that we just announced, on Germany and on Russia. Then it's going to be British Navy for sure. And after that, it's going to be French and Italian, probably. So the tree itself is probably a ways off, but we're probably going to look into doing at least 1 or 2 premium ships before that arrives, just so that Italian players have a flag and have a ship that they can play if they want to. Yes, we've given that a lot of thought. Actually, it's something that we are envisioning that might be a long-term goal for the PvE mode that we have. So originally we developed the PvE mode just as a tutorial mode, but in closed alpha and in closed beta it turned out that it's actually pretty popular just with the normal player base. So people are playing it because it's fun, and off of that gives us some flexibility to organize more structured and more linear kind of battles, where we can spawn ships at certain places, we can respawn them and so on and so forth, which we couldn't really do with battles against normal players, right? So right now we're still focusing on the tutorial parts. We have to roll out at least 1 or 2, well, we have 2 parts of tutorials right now in production, and then after that there's probably going to be some more. When we roll out those, we'll be looking into what to do with the PvE mode, and the historical battles is probably one of the things that we'll be looking in. That's something that we have had for World of Tanks for a long time, and I know that there are some, not very frequently, but once in a while there are community historical battles being organized just through the forums by the community, like you said, through the use of training rooms as well. So that's happening as well in World of Warships. Map builder. Yes, so I had this question at a previous event as well. And actually, it's a very good question, very interesting. I haven't had it, last time was the first time I heard it. In general, this is difficult because for us maps are, they're tied to a lot of technical requirements about how we organize battles on the server from the technical perspective, and how we balance ships as well. So the problem is with making player-created maps that if you think about how this should work, we would need map submissions from players and then upload them on our server, because all of the maps and all the calculations are on the server, right? So because of that, there needs to be a pipeline where a player submits map to us so that we can balance them. Unfortunately, if we do this, then we will have a very, very small amount of maps that we can put onto the server at any given time. So it kind of defeats the purpose, because if we do make a tool for people to make maps, they will have thousands and hundreds of thousands of submissions, and we will be able to implement maybe 2.
Maybe you could have a competition.
So, yes, we do. Actually, right now we're running a competition, at least in North America, and I think already in Asia, and soon we'll be running it in Europe, where people can submit map ideas. So on this side we're running it, but on making an actual tool, it kind of defeats the purpose, because our technical ability to implement these maps would mean that a lot of players submit good ideas, but they're not implemented just because we don't have time.